and Navneet and Ian and Kelly and Ron, Roland, Jake, Steve, Tim. Yeah.
Which Tim? Tim Schäuble or Tim Bessemer?
Neither. Just says Tim M. We got Greg Heiss just joined.
Hey guys.
All right.
Danny's on the call. Hey Danny, how's it going? Keith McQueen. Jeremy Bursk. I think that's Jonathan, probably Krishman, probably.
Kalkmer.
Yeah, Jonathan Kochberg.
Yeah, sorry,
Hey,
Jonathan.
howdy, guys.
Hey, Danny. And
Hey.
Chris Kirkwood just joined as well. So we got about 19 on the call so far, Greg.
I think we got a quorum. It's 11 a.m. Let's get rocking.
Let's do it.
All right. So lots and lots of good stuff to talk about. But as usual, I prefer to get the technical updates at the top of the hour. So Meta, if you are ready, let's rock.
Awesome. Very good. So good morning, everyone. Happy to present our technical update for the week. Let's go. I'm going to dive right into it. So I'm going to kick it off by talking about our developer retreat. We're very excited about hosting this developer retreat. It's going to be held in Denver, Colorado, April 14th to the 18th. The last 2 days are public, so they are open to all. And we are calling for speakers. So I'm going to put a link here in the chat. It's a Google form for you to submit and sign up to speak at our developer conference. We have about 24 slots in total. We can go up to as many as 36 slots for speakers. So we are looking to hear from you. Come out, join us, give a talk. Very excited and engaging with everyone that's interested in learning more about RChain. So that's the top. And if you want to hear more, learn more about the event, it's on the developer.rchain.coop website. We have a link to the Eventbrite and more details on the location and logistics for the conference. So please do register, join us, and do a talk as well. Also, talking to the membership about an informal poll to vote on node names. So we are looking to name the RChain node. And the reason that this is coming up now is because we intend on releasing Debians and RPM packages, which requires that the package have a name. And we want the name to be the same as the name of the product. So we're reaching out to the membership to come up with names that reinforce our brand, secure, scalable, and sustainable, right? Those are the three key points you want to really drive home with the RChain brand. So if you have an idea for the node name, please go ahead and propose it in the RChain Discord. And we have an informal poll going right now in Polling Station. Some folks have put some names up, and we're having a lot of fun with that. So please continue that process. Yes, it's lovely. It's nice to get the creative from the broader base.
Yeah. I'm gonna propose that we follow. Like, it was actually Henry Till that named RChain. I don't know if many people know that. We were kicking around different names. And Henry just said, why not RChain, since we were talking about the row calculus. But it has a nice pun because it's also our chain. So our node, which is our node, and really people, to me, it's simple. It's in the same vein, and it conveys what we're trying to convey.
Definitely, we would love to see your thumbs up there on the poll, Greg.
Sweet.
Awesome. It's very simple, just thumbs up, thumbs down, and then the poll does close on Friday, at which time we'll just take a screenshot of the votes, and that'll be it. But I'm not saying we're going to go with the winner, right? Because it's not like actual voting, it is a poll, and we are working closely with the marketing guys, but there are some very good suggestions in there, so I would like to get as much participation as we can to help with the process. So I just wanted to kind of plug that here as well, as promised. On to the actual technical update. So the compiler team is continuing to make great work, good progress on the Erlang evaluator and the match algorithm, and also De Bruyne indices. These are all important things in order to get Erlang compiling and running properly, either in an interpreter environment or in a virtual machine environment. We've also got a command line interface and REPL implemented for a 3.29 release. And bear in mind, all this work is marching towards the end of March release, where we are going to be releasing a node that will run rolling code. And this node will enable, it'll be more like the January 31st SDK release with a few important distinctions. One, it will be our production components, right? In that the storage layer will be there. The production communications layer will be in that node. We'll have our production packaging in place, right? And whereas the January 31st release, it was using the C++ Rosette runtime environment, which we don't plan on delivering in the end, right, for our Mercury milestone. So this release, because we have the storage tuple space, you'll be able to see how continuations work. So you'll be able to kick off a for comprehension, have it get stored in the tuple space, and then come back and have it resume. And that's the essence of the concurrency and parallelism that comes with the architecture that we're developing. So I'm very excited about this March 29th release. I think it's going to be very cool to be able to demonstrate that. The Node team has a demo of our metrics, our operational metrics, right? So these are features for individuals that actually run nodes, right? These are for the node operators that want to understand all kinds of interesting information about how the node is performing, how much of local resources it's using. And this really flows into giving a delightful experience for the node operators. If you do some research on other blockchain platforms, you'll see a lot of feedback from node operators in terms of, well, I didn't know that I needed to have a certain disk, a certain type of disk installed in terms of the hardware configuration, right? I thought I could just go with a standard hard drive, but I'm finding out that I need to have an SSD drive because of the performance. The requirements are higher than I anticipated. So we're trying to build a platform that really services all of the users, right? All of the user personas. And one very important persona in this entire thing is the node operator. So we want to make sure our node operators have what they need to be able to effectively run and manage their nodes, more importantly. So that'll be a demo that we're going to give today. And it's just going to be a very simple demo of the metrics interface, emitting metrics and how they can do analysis on those metrics. We're also making good progress on the storage tier. The storage library, we intend on releasing that as a separate library at the end of March. That is a long-awaited release. And I'm very excited that we'll be able to deliver this component separately. So the key value store is a very interesting architecture in terms of a storage architecture. And it'll definitely be something I'm expecting that developers in the open source community will be picking up and using in implementations outside of RChain and even outside of blockchain implementations theoretically. The Rosette team has started working on attempting to split out the RBL compiler. We just started working on this, so we're just a couple of days into it. So I don't have any information to report on how difficult or easy we think it will be. We just started. And we've also started doing some 64-bit work as well. Any compiler that we pull out of the C++ implementation will need to be ported to 64 bits before it can be run on modern computing infrastructure. So that work is underway as well. And we don't yet have a timeline on the VM completion. I do anticipate that the transition function will be done sometime in May, but that still is a long way from being completely done. We are spending some time on looking at the primitives, and we will be calling on community support to help us port primitives. So if you are a Scala developer and you want to participate in the project, please do DM me. I'm going to be cutting bounty tickets for primitive porting here very shortly. And we're going to have a very structured workflow to make sure that everybody can be successful in contributing to the project. And we've got a fresh version of the developer website, so please do go check it out. And if you have burning technical questions, use our forums. They're a great way to engage in a more threaded model versus the Discord, which is more free-flowing. And then if you have a technical question, we can get it answered, and then we can just refer other people to the forums, and they can get that answer much more quickly and efficiently. that's my update. I'll open it up for questions. That was a mouthful.
That was quite a lot. Really appreciate the update. Yeah, so how self-contained, like, can we not do the full 64-bit port?
Yeah, I think we're going to look at just the compiler portion. We're only looking to just port the compiler portion to 64 bits. That's right.
Okay, good. Yeah, that's a nice chunk. Okay, excellent.
Yes.
Good. And so I know there was some issues with getting all of the evaluator stuff in. So those PRs are in.
I'm sorry, could you repeat that?
I know that there were some issues with getting the evaluator PRs.
Yes, the evaluator PRs are in. Kyle will be taking a look at the evaluator code today, and then we're going to meet, and I'm going to figure out how we're going to break up the work. Both Michael and Ken will be all hands on deck getting that done.
Okay, all right.
Yeah, running it across the finish line. Mm-hmm. That's teamwork makes the dream work.
Yes, indeed. Very good.
I can give one other quick update. So I am working on specifying the power box, and the power box is a portion of the architecture that basically bundles up all the capabilities of the local system and makes them accessible to what we call system contracts. So for example, Casper, everybody's very familiar with Casper and our consensus algorithm. That is a system contract that will need direct access to the communications channel. And doing this kind of power box type, implementing the power box exposes the communications channel directly to the Casper contract. So we're in the process of specifying that because our April release is going to end. I'm very excited about this release because that release is where the nodes can actually start sending each other's messages via Rolang code. So by the end of April, you'll have you can write a Rolang contract, and the Rolang contract will write something to a channel, and it'll if it writes it to the communication channel, it'll go out over the wire, and then another node will receive that message and display it to standard out, right? So that's the spirit behind the end of April release. And we need to build that capability so that shortly after that, a few releases after that, we can have Casper up and running. So that release is coming end of April. So starting to do the specification and the low-level design and the low-level implementation details are being thought about right now. And we'll be kicking off that work after this sprint. So we're spending this sprint in designing and specifying, and then next sprint, we will go into actual implementation. So we're ready for April 29th to kind of give everybody a little bit of insight into our development process and how we're kind of iteratively sorting these things out.
Did you mean to say April 29th?
I did. I meant April 30th. Yes, end of the month.
Okay.
I think April 30th is the Monday.
Yeah, okay. All right.
Yes.
Cool.
Any other questions? Going once, going twice. Okay.
All right. So thank you, Meta, and thanks to the entire team for their hard work. Greg Heiss, are you ready to give a reflective interest update?
Absolutely. I can do that. Hello, everybody. A few things. One thing you may have noticed on the Discord channel, and it didn't quite get communicated the right way, but we'll get it figured out. I was trying to separate and have a separate channel just for reflective, because we want a place that we can put all the companies we're working with, any of the sales that are going on, any information that anybody wants to know about any of the companies we're investing the co-ops dollars in, it would be there. It looks like the old channel just got pushed into that one. So anyway, I'm figuring that out, but the goal is to have a separate channel that everybody can interact with regarding all that we are doing at Reflective. So that will be happening soon. We had great meetings in New York. I think the last time I talked to you all, we were there. Obviously, we're back. I think we talked to, 12 to 15 different companies. We're in diligence with 8 to 9 of them. There was only a couple that didn't quite meet the billing, which is great for the work that we're doing ahead of time to schedule these, and frankly, for the referrals that we're getting, whether it's from the community members or where we're getting them to source these deals. So we've got 4 already in the books with these 8 more. I would suspect we'll potentially have 4 more by the end of the month. So I know we set a goal out to do 12. We've been talking a lot internally on the team as to how many we're going to do. I think we're going to be closer to that 25 to 50 number by the end of the year. So we're super excited to get a lot of companies lined up to get out there when Mercury launches. That being said, going back and forth with Nash on the developer conference, I would love to extend invites to our portfolio companies and their development team to come to that conference. I'd love to have a separate track or places where they could meet with the developers and sort of go back and forth with what they're thinking and what you guys are building. So really
yes.
that.
I mean, I'm sorry to interrupt, but yes, I mean that's a must-have, right? The whole point of this of the venture stuff was to get requirements, right? And the best way to have advocacy for requirements is for people who are building stuff on top of your stuff.
Yeah, no, it's perfect. And so we are going to send as many as we possibly can. So and it's all just solidifying right now, right? And so I get that. So anyway, Nash and I are working on that. So Greg, we're going to try to deliver as many companies there as we possibly can for that, and not overwhelm the group, but we expect to have quite a few of them there.
Fantastic.
Yep, for sure. And then the office space is coming along. We just met with the designers, and that thing is all going through as scheduled. So that's fantastic news. We're getting a lot of interest, not just locally, but from all over the place when we talk about creating this workspace hub. I'm half thinking that the space is going to be too small and we're going to outgrow it before we even move into it, which I guess is a good problem to have. But we're really looking forward to that. The other things I think I mentioned last week that we brought on 2 new team members in Renal and John West. So those guys are on board and going 100 miles an hour. So we couldn't be more excited about that as well. We're going to have some really great announcements coming out in the next couple of weeks with some of the projects and things that those 2 have brought to the team already. So you'll be hearing a lot more from them as well. I want to say that's it. I'm sure there's more, but feel free with any questions, or for sure go to the Discord channel and hit me up. It looks like we're going to do some sort of a talk. I've been sort of waiting for the dust to settle as to timing and what the Pythia guys are doing and how we set up some sort of a Zoom channel talk about reflective, and we're happy to do that. We're just working on dates, so look for that as well. And that's it.
Hey, Greg, it's Rudy here.
Hey, Rudy.
A small matter here with regards to the office space. This is mundane, but it's necessary. If the espresso machine's to be included in that setup.
Hey, no,
done.
Rudy, that goes into a different building. Sorry, Greg.
Oh, does it?
Yeah. Unless we're talking about 2 espresso machines.
Well, I guess
Greg, you took our machine already. Wow. Okay. I see how it works. Okay. All right then.
Very good. No, well, we can talk to Kent about getting 2. You know,
Rudy, we got your work cut out for you. Get us another one.
All right. Yeah. Well, wherever we're talking about machines, just for future reference, they have drains, they make noise, all kinds of things need to be considered. So just letting you know.
Yeah, no, of course, Rudy. Yeah, I appreciate that, reminding us of that. Yeah.
Architects don't know this. They may think they do.
That's very funny.
Okay, point well taken.
Yeah, awesome. Thank you, Greg. That was a great update. Is Lawrence on the call? I'm unfortunately I can't see everyone right now.
No, this is Navneet. Hey, Greg, he's not on the call. Probably I can give a little bit update. We have signed a deal with Life ID, which is identity company, and we announced in our last Seattle RChain meetup. That was one of the biggest updates. And then we are in process of signing another identity company. We are still working on due diligence and paperwork, so I can't announce the name, but it's in the pipeline, and we will be announcing it soon. In a similar token, our working group or standard body, what we are trying to define for identity is going on. We have a first working group conference set up for next week. We will post the link for wider audience or community probably in next few days. And similar token, I think that's all for now.
Next Tuesday morning.
Yeah. Right. So I think another, Ed is just next to me. He just mentioned one more item is we have next week for 20th to update about Pythia and any questions community has. Yeah, 7 a.m. Pacific. We will post the time and in Discord channel. And if you guys have any questions, I would be happy to answer.
Awesome. Thank you, Navneet. Appreciate the update. Can you tell us a little bit about the difference between the two different identity companies? What makes the why the spread? What is the spread? Why the spread? All of that stuff.
So the way we are looking at it, from a horizontal, we are defining in two ways: horizontal companies and the vertical. So all identity companies, they fit into this horizontal, and we need identity service in every aspect of any D apps. And that's the reason we have two different companies. They have different philosophy, the way they are handling the market, or they are going towards the market. I think Life ID, Chris is from Life ID. He's on the call. Probably he can give a little bit more color. I will let him speak about Life ID. And the another company, they will join our call once we sign the deal with them. Probably they will join and they can explain more how they are different than rest of the market or rest of the identity companies.
Cool.
Yeah.
So go ahead.
So another suggestion, I just want to piggyback on Greg's suggestion. We should have, I think, one day dedicated in developers conference for the apps, starting with the people coming in, what Greg Heiss mentioned. And I think the company like identity company, Life ID, or some other companies, they can come and talk to our developers for D apps they are building, or at least to start conversation on D apps.
I think that's a really, really important point. And I want to amplify it. I had a short but really, really good meeting with Tim and Phil, who are at the governance conference and who've been very active members in the community. They brought in a couple more members, and they've formed a little group where they really want to go after a parallel effort with Europe to try to get RChain presence in Europe. And they have a very nice proposal to get a lot of developers to the April conference and to target even more conferences with more European presence. And one of the things they were talking about was how they really, really enjoyed the last Ethereum conference they went to, because there was so much of this community spirit, there was so much in the way of developers feeling like they could make a difference in the world just by doing what they do and doing what they love to do. And I really think that spirit is, and they want to help RChain foster that kind of spirit and that kind of experience for developers. And I think one of the ways that we're likely to foster that is by getting a bunch of dApp developers who are excited about what they're doing and passionate about the tools that they're using to talk about what they're doing. I think that'll really foster that kind of general feeling. So I'd like to very much support having dApp developers there for that reason, as well as because the whole point is to have them drive requirements and be sort of vocal and pointed advocates for particular requirement sets. So yeah. I think this is really important. Along those lines, go ahead.
No, I'm saying I totally agree with you. I think a dedicated session for DApp developers would be really good.
Yeah, I mean, like even a full day, right?
Yeah.
Or half a day or something like that. we've only got 2 public days, so but something that some substantial portion of the airtime should be for dev developers to talk about what they're doing, but also talk about their expectations with respect to the platform roadmap. I think that's going to be really important.
And I'm sure they will drive some of the requirements also. And
yeah,
definitely this interaction will help overall ecosystem for us.
Yeah, agreed. Yeah, that's what I meant by their expectations with respect to the platform roadmap. I know there was a company that was in somewhere up in the northern European parts, like maybe Sweden or something, who was talking to me, and they had very, very specific requirements, that volume related requirements with respect to transaction fees, that basically just meant, I mean, they had a very clear, specific government ID based use case that had very clear transaction volumes identified with it, and just by running the numbers, they could not be profitable on Ethereum ever. And so when we were looking at it together, it seemed quite reasonable to be profitable on with the RChain expectations with respect to transaction throughput and cost of transactions. So it was a very promising discussion. I haven't picked up I mean, that was like a year and a half ago I was talking with them, so I haven't picked up the threads with them, but I could forward those on to you guys, Navneet, since you guys are very interested in identity, and they have good European connections.
Oh, absolutely.
At the risk of sounding like a broken record, I'm going to be beating the drum of Mercury is Mercury. The requirements are more or less locked, and we have to be very careful about making promises.
Yeah, that's why I said roadmap. Yeah. I'm talking about all the planets here, not just Mercury.
Yeah. Yes. Other planets are good.
yeah, exactly. That's right.
So, other planets are great.
Yes, indeed.
I had a question about.
Go ahead.
I had a question about the conference itself coming up in Colorado.
Yeah.
Do you know?
Christian, can we hold on to that question? Let me complete it, and then we'll come back to this conference question. Probably it may get covered later on. So, from update sides, Greg and rest of the community, what we plan to do, the company we are going to sign, probably they can come and present, 10 minutes, some sort of in community engagement. In coming weeks, we'll be asking them to help us and present their case to community also at the same time.
Yes, more of that. In fact, I mean, I don't know how you feel, Navneet and Greg Heiss, and I think it might be an interesting diligence gauntlet to have to run to make it an important component of the diligence that they present to the community.
Yeah, Greg, that could be a possibility. I think we can talk a little bit more. So at this moment, what I was, the direction I was going, like Life ID, we have signed up with them, and I would be very much interested to, present their presentation or their business plan to the rest of the community and hear from them directly in coming weeks. And, it serves a bunch of purpose for us. Number one, community gets aware that where we are heading, how we are doing. And at the same time, they get wider audience also for their platform. And of course, they are building on RChain. That's their goal eventually.
Oh no, exactly. I mean, I think that there are many advantages to doing something like that. So, in particular, the community, the RChain community, is incredibly smart. I mean, I got that feedback from so many of the presenters. The facilitators, the presenters, the many external parties, people who just come to the RChain community for the first time. The first thing that they got, said to me was, "My God, this community is really smart. There's some really smart people in this room," and so taking advantage of both the individual intelligence and the collective intelligence to get feedback on your offering, I think that's invaluable. If you got a community that's 1,000 deep, that wants to say that can give you feedback on your offering, I mean, take it, take it as much as you possibly can. And then the other side of it is that probably many of the people who have invested in RChain and are in the RChain community are looking for interesting investments, and so getting them up to speed early on what that DApp is and why it's important and why you're passionate about it is only a good thing in terms of getting an additional investment. So that's another big win there. So I think it could be a really a valuable component of the diligence thing. I mean, of course, it doesn't have to be diligence; it can be after diligence. But I think even pre-diligence or as a part of diligence, it might be useful for some offerings.
Oh, absolutely. I think you nailed it really well. That going forward, I think that would be a good forum to include the companies, portfolio companies in our community hangouts. Ask them to join, at least present their case, and I'm sure there'll be new ideas coming out of community to evolve our offering also at the same time. Yeah,
we have precedents for this already, right? I mean, Peter Harris from Resonate came and talked about Resonate before the deal was signed. Obviously, the CryptoFX people,
yep.
they did they talked a lot about CryptoFX early with the community. So I think we've got precedents for doing that. What do you think, Greg?
No. I'm quietly listening. I'm smiling because we've had this idea and we could take it many different directions, but we could certainly do it online, but we could also do either, quarterly, monthly, semi-annually, where we could bring groups, companies, potential portfolio companies into a room and have them present in front of as many members we can get them into, very similar to how you see angel networks work today.
Yep.
And they would present and they could go through that, get the questions in, and kind of see also how we as Reflective, and for that matter, Pithy as well, sort of goes through deal flow and the questions we ask and participate. And Greg, I loved your added value there of these members, meaning the co-op members that come to this, could very well participate in this investment themselves. I don't want to get into a habit where every single company's got to go through the whole community, because that would be a nightmare for the community and the companies. But if we could bump them together into either certain times, or I like the idea, and we can talk about it more offline and come to the community with the plan as to how we can do that. I think it's smart.
Yeah. Good. That's great. Yeah. I mean, I just want to use the resources we've got as much as we possibly can.
No, for sure. I won't stop saying how much help the community's been to us so far, and we'll continue to lean on them for things like this.
Oh, awesome. Absolutely, Greg. I think both Gregs, the way I see our community could be our first customer also for all portfolio companies, right? That's how people are going to start to use, and we need viral marketing going on later on once we have reviews from our community. So I think our community is very important, and we need to rely on them. Sooner we do, better for us overall. I think for ecosystem as well as Pythia and Reflexive both, or RChain Co-op too.
Yeah, very, very good. Thank you so much for these updates. I mean, they're rich and exciting, and I'm really looking forward to hearing more about the companies that are coming forward. Also, I'm completely I have a very selfish motive, which is I'm jealous. You guys get to talk to even more smart people. So we need to bring them here, make this channel even richer. It's awesome.
It's good. Good.
So Greg, I will set up something for one of the companies we are talking, and then one of the companies we have already signed up for Life ID. Probably they can come next week. I haven't confirmed with them yet, but I will confirm if they are open to present for 10 minutes, short pitch to rest of the community, what they think and what other places, community can help them also with their product and whatnot. Or any feedback would be definitely helpful to them.
Great, really good. Another connection point that's related to the trip I just got back from yesterday is we want to be able to get the research network that we're building out now to provide advisory capacity, to provide talent for these portfolio companies, for the DApps, right? We definitely want them. So the research network that we're setting up, we absolutely want it to support the platform itself. And we want to support basic research so that we can constantly be improving the platform. And I'll talk about like how crazy wild this gets in just a few minutes. But we also want them to be thinking about all kinds of other applications that we've never thought about, or to be providing their world-class smarts to give diligence on portfolio companies that are coming forward, or give it guidance and advice on portfolio companies that have already been signed. So those are aims that we have for the research network that we're setting up. And so I want to, once we have research proposals in place, I want to start talking to the members of the research network that are actively working on proposals about some of the opportunities and get them connected both with Reflective and with Pythia. So hopefully you guys are open to that, because
oh gosh, yes, yes.
Great. Yes. Yeah. This works for us too.
Very good. Very good. So is Mike on the call? Again, unfortunately, I'm driving with hands-free and I can't see. Mike, are you on the call? Mike, stay.
He's not. He's doing a family event today.
Yes,
Oh,
he's
okay.
out of the office today. He's not available.
Totally understood. We were, I have to say that this was one of the most energy intensive trips I've ever done. We were, the shortest day was 16 hours. And many days we were traveling, just from, we had to be places at 4 in the mornings. And so, and yeah, the travel part of this was very, very intensive. So it's well understood if people need to take some time off. But the reason I was calling for Mike was because at the Dev stand up this week, Mike voiced that he was actually surprised by how well received we were by the researchers that we talked to. 100% of the researchers said that they were interested and were likely to submit a proposal to join the research network. So I'm very excited about that. I'm also excited because out of the, it wasn't a part of the initial discussions, but out of discussions through engaging with all of these institutions, high performance computing labs. So every single one of them, Oxford, Cambridge, Sorbonne, Imperial, and Edinburgh, all have high performance computing labs. And we're navigating now through the contacts that we have. We're navigating to contacts there because we'd like to get our node software in the hands of these high profile institutional high performance computing labs. And so Meta, look for that in the next few weeks. Where we want to start getting our node software into the hands of people who can really pound on it at the level that you might expect in a high performance computing lab.
All right, looking forward.
Yeah, it should be. Go ahead. Sorry, I got some kind of weird echo there. Sorry about that. And then in terms of some basic research, I was quite intrigued because as some people know already, we've been looking at two things with respect to the consensus algorithms. One is to axiomatize consensus more generally, and that axiomatization that we're looking at puts it squarely inside the bailiwick of Bob Kuka and Samson Abramsky, who've been looking at quantum solutions. And so as a part of the discussion with Bob, I don't know if I mentioned this last week, but it bears repeating even if I did. Bob feels that he has a framework in which he can express quantum consensus. But more intriguingly, he's working with a company in Cambridge who is building next-gen physical quantum compute infrastructure. And so he feels that he can realize the algorithm that he was intuiting on physical hardware. So maybe this idea of quantum consensus is not quite as far out in the future as I had assumed it might be. So that gives you just a little tiny taste of what we were talking with researchers about. Another one that Mike felt was really impressive was Sophia Drosopoulou mentioned that she's got this sort of heavy duty machinery with respect to correctness, and she feels like at least with the existing smart contract infrastructure, there's just it. I'm trying to find the right words for this. She's looking for more significant or substantial problems where sort of real world problems that you might expect in an industrial smart contracting infrastructure that needs the kind of apparatus that she can deploy. So hopefully that was a politic way of saying what I was trying to say. So anyway, I think that the community is going to be extremely pleased with that piece of the puzzle. That we're laying out essentially the fabric that's going to help us shape the future of the technology. So I'm very excited about that. And I think with that we have most of the pieces in play organizationally in terms of the sort of the major chunks that you would expect to have in an ecosystem like this. So we've got two healthy, vibrant DApp communities that are developing. We've got the platform developing. We've got research developing, and then we have governance and the community developing on those lines. So I think we're getting close to the point where we don't need sort of these major organizational architectural pieces, and so resources can then be a lot of work has gone into setting up the organizational architecture. It's been very, very demanding and very time consuming, but I think we can pull back from the deployment of time and attention and energy on sort of the major architectural chunks of the organizational infrastructure and focus now from now going forward just on execution, which I think would be really, really we would be blessed if we could do that. I think a lot of communities at this stage are really strapped because they have to be demanding attention across present day execution.
Greg,
organization.
there we lost you completely.
Oh, okay. Where did you lose me?
I didn't
you guys
lose you. Yeah, I can hear you fine.
Yeah, I didn't lose you, Greg.
Okay, good. So with that, let me stop, get some feedback, and then we have several other important updates. So any questions or comments about all the things that were said so far?
Hey, Greg. I just want to bring to your attention that there is an email introduction in your inbox to Larry Castro. He's the CEO of Stealth Grid, and they're building a quantum mesh blockchain network for secure wireless communications.
Awesome. I saw that email. I read through it, and I'm ready to respond. We just got on the ground last night, so yeah.
Right. Okay.
Yep. Very good. Looking forward to chatting. And yeah, thanks for the introduction. Any other questions or comments about those topics from the community?
Well, with respect to member investment in other ventures, I think that, in terms of the token economy or the rock rev economies, that these ventures that are getting rewarded in rocks, before going to the marketplace, they should go to the membership if they want to cash in their rocks.
So I think that's an important point, but actually that's been a part of the plan for quite some time. But it's really more. Most of these, let's talk in terms of CryptFX or Resonate. Both of them are minting their own tokens, and I know that they plan to approach the community with their tokens before they go to a wider market. And I think that's a part of a general shape for this stuff, is to make sure that everything is available to the community first.
Thank you.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah. So yeah, I think you're spotting what everyone has been spotting independently, which is we have this growing community here, so we should utilize the community first to help bootstrap these offerings, and it's a very natural thing, and I think it's a very positive thing.
And it's self-capitalization.
Absolutely, and it's very much in alignment with what we've been trying to say about some of the value of blockchain, which is that communities can bootstrap offerings that they think are valuable, right? And that's it's one of the ways in which it's one of the differences between the way capital is working today versus how capital can work, or other kinds of financial instruments can work with the blockchain. And I think we've seen this time and time again. The Bitcoin network basically bootstrapped itself. The Ethereum network bootstrapped itself. And many of the altcoin networks bootstrapped themselves. Several dApp communities bootstrapped themselves. And what we're seeing is that with this new mindset about what capital is and what it can be, and what other kinds of financial instruments and coordination instruments can be, we're demonstrating that communities can form, recognize, and realize value, and that's I don't know how there could be such a more clear proof of this sort of world changing impact of this technology. Thank you for pointing that out, Jim. Okay, so a few other updates. One is we're having a change in the board membership. Alex Bulkin has resigned, and I think it was very responsible of him. He has not been able to make most of the board meetings for several months now, and so I really appreciate his finally just acknowledging that Coin Fund and his other activities are taking up more of his time than he had anticipated, at least with respect to, and also that the co-op, the RChain cooperative board is just it's a much more engaging and demanding activity than I think a lot of other boards might be. So I'm glad he was able to sort of sort that out for himself. He also mentioned when he sent his note to the board that he was resigning, that he had some concerns about an old issue with respect to David Otto and David Otto ran one of the first Bitcoin exchanges, and and the SEC tried to make an example of them, and I was well aware of that. Unfortunately, I think some of the younger members of the community were not aware of that and tried to make more out of it than it was, and sort of spammed a bunch of people with articles about it. We're going to be talking about this in a lot more detail, first with a smaller sector of the community, make sure that everyone is educated, and then with the wider community, make sure that no one has any concerns that they're harboring about it. I've been apprised of it for quite some time, and like more than 2 years, I think, and I was not concerned about it at all in this market.
It makes him one of the few veterans of the issues, and he's breaking ground.
That's exactly right. But we'll get into that. I think one of the things that's more important to me than anything is how the community responds to these kinds of things. I mean, we've seen lots and lots of instances of kind of internet mob rule, where somebody gets a hold of someone gets a wild hair up their ass and decides that they're going to take it out on some underdog member of the community, and then a whole mob forms, and they can really destroy lives. And that's not what we want for the RChain community. I think that the RChain community is full of people who are considered and deliberate and like to get to the bottom of things, rather than to jump on the bandwagon without really knowing the facts. And so we want to make sure that we support those impulses within the community. So in terms of that, I'm facilitating a conversation with David Otto and some concerned community members this week, tomorrow, in fact, and then we will open it up for wider discussion. I just want to make sure that there's a base of people who are educated about the issues, and then talk through it in a wider setting. I think everyone is very interested in transparency, being clean and clear about what has transpired and what we want to engage in going forward. So hopefully that's not a major issue, but I really am grateful to Alex for recognizing that he couldn't participate at the level that was necessary to participate. He said in his email that he is still, an ardent advocate and enthusiast for RChain. So it's not like he has any lost confidence in RChain either as a platform or as a community, but just recognizing that he just couldn't discharge his responsibilities to the board. So we're
on that note, Greg. There's a public statement from Alex that I just posted to Discord. It's in board to the board channel, which is board to co-op, and I also posted it in members only. So feel free to take a look and read that at your own leisure.
Thank you, Kenny. I really appreciate that. Let's see. There are several other updates. There's one. I had a really good conversation with Ian Kendrick. I think a lot of people who are at the governance forum were quite delighted by the presentation that Ian Kendrick from H3 Uni gave to at the brunch, at the Sunday brunch at the end of the forum. So he sort of described a kind of fractal and holistic structure of organizations that are of viable systems, so to speak. And I think a lot of people responded to that. Several people wanted to have him engage further. I think he engaged with the governance committee, and he was gracious enough. He lives in Liverpool, and he trekked all the way down to Imperial to join the tail end of the meeting with the Imperial researchers, and then rode on the train from Imperial back to Oxford, and we had a good discussion. Ian recognizes that, and you know, I'll just be really blunt about it. We need to have the community be able to access in a very broad way, kind of collective intuition. People need to be able to intuit what needs to be done, and kind of know that other people are intuiting the same thing, and trust and rely upon that intuition. It's a, you know, sometimes these things that are softer to talk about than something like the Casper protocol or the row calculus. They're a little bit harder to articulate, but they're not any less valuable. The row calculus itself and Casper itself came from being able to access certain kinds of intuitions, and then to be able to follow those intuitions through to you know, something that could be realized, something that could be made material and actionable and executable. So to that end, Ian has some specific techniques and has proposed to the co-op that we run a workshop for people who are in positions where, you know, people who have recognized authority within the co-op, to foster and develop this kind of capacity, and I'm very much in support of that. It's a very interesting program that was developed by a luminary in the field called Stafford Beer, and so I'm going to be supporting that as a proposal that goes to the board, and more of that in the upcoming weeks. So hopefully we have a crisp, concrete proposal that we can get community feedback on in the next little while, and then we'll put that to the board hopefully by the next board meeting. Let's see, a couple of other things. So I'm going to be okay. So in terms of the meeting that we had in Berlin, I know we have, it's like 3 minutes left in the hour, so I just want to mention some of the things that happened in Berlin. So we have agreed with Peter Harris and Resonate to fund a part-time contractor to help us get on top of the real estate issue. So we want a clear set of trade-offs in terms of whether or not it will actually be cheaper to buy space or to rent space in Berlin in the long term. We got a much crisper number in terms of the head count and sort of number of desks that are needed, both for Resonate and for RChain.coop.de. And so we have a pretty concise mandate for someone to help us figure out what the European presence is going to look like in terms of physical space. Additionally, we spent some time talking about the formation of the RChain.coop.de. So this would be a German cooperative. We walked through, you know, sort of the in principle part of this discussion, which is that we don't want some kind of command and control structure. We want to think of these as sister organizations that trust each other and rely upon each other, more like cells, you know, in an organism rather than you know, some kind of top-down hierarchy. So, and then we looked at what the initial configuration of the board, the sort of bootstrap configuration of the board would be for the European cooperative, and then how that might grow. We also looked at some of the requirements with respect to expertise. So one of the things that seems to be quite a strong requirement is both on the real estate side, on the legal side for the cooperative, and on a lot of the business side. We have to have individuals who are fluent in both German and in English. So that's we're just beginning to identify skill sets and requirements from that point of view. So it's marching along. We're getting back in order to kicked off in a major way. I want to have a proposal in front of the board by May. So the May the board a proposal for launching RChain.coop.de. I've also asked Tim and Phil and their organization to plug in there. Before I forget, I've also asked Tim and Phil to coordinate with the marketing plan that Encore and Mernal and those and Patrick have all put together. So that should help accelerate our presence in Europe. But back to this formation of the co-op in the sister co-op in Europe. I want as many eyes on this process as possible so that we make sure that we get it done. Again, it's not just radical transparency, but it's making sure that we utilize as much as possible of the collective intelligence to get it done in a smart and efficient way. So hopefully people are, are there any questions about this?
Well, an observation, which is that, to my knowledge, the co-op mentality is much more of a tradition and better understood in Europe and Germany and Finland in particular. And I think we could learn a great deal from watching a co-op develop in soil that's a bit more amenable to cooperative activity.
Jonathan, my connection got interrupted for a minute. Can you repeat that? I'm sorry.
Sure. I think the U.S. co-op or the U.S.-based co-op could learn a great deal from watching the sprouting and blooming of a German-based co-op, because cooperative organizations and people being in co-ops is much more common in Germany and Finland, etc. So it's a more amenable culture in a sense.
I agree. Yeah. Absolutely. That's one of the things I've been thinking a lot about. Yeah. Totally. I know we're over the we're 2 minutes over, but just want to make sure are there any other questions here?
Yeah, Greg.
Yeah.
Quick one. Based on some remarks you said earlier, I was wondering, is there anyone at RChain who's in charge of the face of the RChain to the outside community, like in a PR function? Because I think what I see here is you have a high performance coding technical aspect that is the guts of the operation, and then you have this thing added on top, which is various ventures and so forth. One is hard and you have to marry them somehow. When people come into the community, if they're coming from a non-coding part of the community or a non-technical part of the community, there need to be avenues for getting them in and helping them understand why they would do this in the first place and not have it be vague. So is someone in charge of doing that sort of thing? Does the website have anything on it, or is there any way of? It's like having a car that has a high performance engine, but the damn gear shift burns you every time you get in. So you want to make sure those kinks are worked out.
So Rudy, you're touching on a lot of points that are very important. So yes, the short answer to your question is yes, we do.
Okay.
So part of what has gone into the marketing proposal begins to address that. But you're touching on a broader set of questions. So there's a committee, there's a welcoming committee that's just been formed. I know that Kenny can speak to that. which helps with onboarding members. And maybe Kenny, you want to give a few words about that?
Sure. Actually, Ian is actually probably also very well informed with this, but specifically what we're looking at here is Amaka is taking kind of the lead with Ian on that. Ian, you want to give a little bit more details on this?
Yeah, actually, there are a few working groups that have formed, and we're still playing around with the structure and how that fits into the governance. Yes, Amaka is taking the lead in a new member working group that will help with onboarding new members and helping them to find resources that they're looking for and finding ways that they can participate in the community. This is also a role having to do with the initial ID verification. So when someone joins the co-op and they meet with someone face-to-face on webcam for the ID verification, we can handhold and walk them through how to get involved.
Yeah, if you want to join the open member meeting that follows this meeting, we can delve into that further.
Yeah. So there's several groups that are working on making sure that new members who come in, or even potential members who are considering joining, that they have the resources that they need to get themselves oriented and become effective members of the cooperative. Our first the co-op has decided for some period of time proposal that's on the table right now is aimed at solving that particular problem. But as we get out past Mercury, and there's a clearer evidence that there's a wider set of uses and there's a broader set of uses, then we're going to open up that marketing message to a much to different market sectors, different communities. Already, as you may know, Rudy, I've mentioned before, one of our efforts in terms of community outreach, and this is very deliberate and based upon research that I've been doing for the last year, is to reach out to the burner community. I've mentioned several times on this hangout that the differentiator, when Larry and Sergey from Google were looking for a CEO, the differentiator amongst all of them that selected Eric Schmidt as the CEO of Google was the fact that he was a burner, the fact that he'd gone to Burning Man. There's a long history of Burning Man as being a kind of mecca for the thought leadership in Silicon Valley, so that's one of the reasons why we are working with Primavera to have a presence in for RChain at this year's Burning Man. So that was a more detailed and longer answer than you probably wanted.
Well, no, actually it was a fine answer, and I realize we're out of time. But I'll get in touch with Ian, because I just like the connection we made with La Marzocco. I'm used to seeing furrowed brows around the table, people trying to understand what the hell we're talking about, and I want to take the furrows out of those brows.
Yeah, totally, and I get where you're coming from. So if there's any, yeah.
Anyway,
Rudy Harper, forehead smoother.
To the stars. Okay, thanks.
I love it. Okay, well, I'm sorry that we ran over. No, sure, thank you. Thanks to all who remained on the call, even though it ran over by almost 10 minutes. And looking forward to chatting with everyone next week. Rock on, so to speak.
Ciao.